Hi, this is Rick Polari, and welcome to another chapter in the Songwriter's Notebook. We're here in the shop in Malone with one of the most interesting characters that I've ever met. I've been to a lot of guitar makers and artists, but I have to say, coming over here to David Nichols' shop is really quite an experience. And David, it really has been on my mind for a long time to try and get the cameras over here and record this for the Library of Congress so that the people get a little sense of someone who's really committed their lives to the fine art of pearl inlay and custom guitars. Viewers back home, I mean, there are very few people who can do with pearl what David and his shop can do. And we're going to explore that as we go through the shop. We're going to find out a little bit about the different types of materials that are used in the inlay process, and you'll actually see how some of these inlays are done. And we'll get a chance to see some of these modern guitars, this whole line of guitars that you're making that are just absolutely incredible. Now, can you just give us a little background? You started making your first guitar in what year?
1959, I made the first one.
And that was, you were in high school at the time?
I was a high school woodshop. And it's kind of an interesting story because I grew up with a father that was a gunsmith and a clockmaker. So I grew up in a woodshop, and I had the young delicate hands that could do the gun engraving and the inlay on guns. So I liked music, and by the time I got to high school, I told the shop teacher that I wanted to build a guitar, and normally he would have flinched, but small town, everyone knew each other, and he said to me, "David, if I let you, I'm going to have to let everyone, but here's how we're going to work it. If you can detail for me exactly how you're going to do it, every step, then I'll let you do it. And that way, if what I'm doing for you, I can tell that same thing to the next student." So I made up all my plans and made that first guitar in high school woodshop.
Around in the 1960s, there were a lot of people who were kind of looking at the old style Martin guitars, the old D45s, and there wasn't really many people who knew how to do that work.
No, when I started, there were no books on the subject. There wasn't anything really to go from, and I think there was maybe one guitar construction booklet out, but it was beyond my means as a country boy to find. And we kind of, I say we, I had some friends that we used to hang out in the shop with, and we invented our own method for doing pretty much everything.
Now, you also had a sort of an influence, I might say a mentor, from Mike Longworth.
Not necessarily a mentor. Mike was in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I was in Messina, New York, and we met at a bluegrass festival, and I had a banjo that I was playing that I had built, and Mike saw that and asked me where I got it. Mike was doing conversions. He was taking D28s and turning them into D45s at the time. And we got chatting and comparing notes on what we knew and who we knew and all that kind of thing. And he said to me at that time, "I'm going to the Martin Guitar Factory and try to convince them to reissue the D45, and would you like to be part of it?" And of course I would. And in the 1968 era, Mike got organized at Martin, and he became the administrative direction of what we were doing, and I was the hands-on inlayer. I would take home fingerboards and headstock veneers and do that sort of thing, and he got them at the plant where they could cut the small pieces of pearl and put them around the body, and I did all the fancy stuff.
And how long did that kind of last?
Quite a few years. I was the total outside pearl source for Martin for the next 6 or 7 years, probably, in that era. We started to branch out a little bit, and the first crazy thing we did was we did a guitar for Neiman Marcus, the catalog outfit, and that was one where we had it was the first of the custom shop, and that was exciting for me because it opened up a whole new field of people able to order a custom Martin guitar rather than just regular, and I had more fun doing the individual one-off inlays. And along about that time, I met Larry Seifel, much the way Mike Longworth met me. Larry was playing a banjo with engraved inlay. I got chatting with him, and he was doing pearl in a Vega tradition, like I was doing it in a Martin tradition. And we got talking about everything that we knew, sharing ideas. And Larry, when his parents died, they left him some money, and he took the money and invested it in machinery and developed the first CNC, or computer numerically controlled machine, to cut pearl. And he started a company called Pearl Works, which would then come in with Martin, and he did all the long run special things, like he'd do 100 offs, and I'd be doing the twos and the threes and the fours of something. And we became pretty good friends. He passed away a few years ago, but Pearl Works, his company, still does an awful lot of CNC machine cutting for practically everyone. And he also designed a laminated shell they called Ablam, which they, back many years ago, the Japanese did what they call lacquer art. They would take a very thin shaving off a shell with a knife and glue that onto a brass vase, if you will, or vase, and then lacquer over it and sand the lacquer till the inlay came out. Well, Larry figured out how they were able to cut these wafers of shell and laid them in an epoxy matrix to make sheets of nice color pearl that we could then use, and it pretty much revolutionized where we've gone in the pearl industry. But let me get one of the actual shells to show you, and then I can show you a piece of the shell that we've got and compare it to the real shell. Here's the shell, and in order to utilize this shell, you take it on, if you've ever heard of a tile saw, which is a wet diamond saw, and they cut it in pieces and then stone grind both sides of the piece flat. Here's a piece, there's where it came from. That being the heart of the shell, and that being the piece, the thin piece out of it. The shell itself is yay thick, with a back that's riddled with parasite holes that we have to grind off because we don't want to get any of the holes in the shell. This one hasn't been ground at all. This one is a green abalone shell. This is a black abalone shell. The black abalone and the power shells we're getting out of New Zealand, and the green abalone's coming out of California. But you can see again the heart, and this one is kind of pale, subtle colors, where this one's an in-your-face colors. And a lot of them will have the barnacles and the growths on them, and that all has to be cleaned off and gone. We typically buy the shell from a country that has labor cheap enough to process it, because the processing is very labor intensive. A lot of it now is coming out of Vietnam, because there are people there that are cutting and grinding this shell and doing a pretty nice job of it. I'd like to talk a little bit about the different shells types that we use. This particular pattern, these are generally called a tree of life when they flow from one end to the other, but this is a mixture of Paua abalone and mother of pearl. And I'd like to show you a finished product and then show you some of the different types of shell that have gone into this. Now, the regular abalone that we use comes from different places around the world, California coast to any of the Pacific coast or some of the Atlantic coast shells we use. This is called green abalone, and the shell is marked for the ripple effect that you get a lot of it, and the really striking colors that come out. Here's a piece that has what we call a lot of chatoyance, or a lot of shine to it. Green abalone, red abalone, a different species. This is a little plainer looking, doesn't have as much ripple, and this is the crunchy looking part, is called the heart of the shell, and it's where the animal attached itself to its shell on the inside. Now I'll get an actual shell and show you in just a minute where some of this comes from. But there's green abalone, red abalone. This is white mother of pearl, and mother of pearl is a single-shelled shellfish with a diameter of the ones that we get are generally a foot to 18 inches across, and thick enough in spots where you could make tuning buttons out of them even. You've seen the mother of pearl tuning knobs on instruments. Mother of pearl shells that we use predominantly come from what we call the gold-lipped shell, and that particular shell, the outer few inches of it is a brassy gold, and then it transitions in through the gold and white into the white shell. But the outer edges of it, you can get pretty much every color of the rainbow. It'll pick up pinks and blues, and this is in the transitional range of the shell. And it'll go from solid, that gold color, all the way through. This piece is white on one side and gold on the other, so that's a couple inches in on the shell. Then that leads us to the new stuff, the laminated shell, and let me grab some of that. It's right here. Okay, the one that shows off the best how it's made is the mother of pearl shell, because you can see all the little, what we call feathers, that are glued together to make the sheet. They take a sheet of masonite, which is a construction board, put a wash of epoxy on it, line up all these feathers of shell, and each feather itself is only maybe 3 or 4 thousandths thick. So they'll line those all up in another wash of glue and another layer of shells, and the back, the bottom third of the thickness isn't as well matched as the top half. When you inlay, you generally sand in a little bit, and you want the good shell to come up. White mother of pearl, Paua, this is the New Zealand shell, and green ripple, this one is. Now these sheets are wonderful palettes to work from. The drawback is that there's $175. So you don't want to waste a whole lot of it. And there's other, here's one made from chips of shell called Sparkle Abalone. And let's see what we got else in here in the drawer. Gold mother of pearl. And that one, I gotta make sure I'm telling you right, is brown mother of pearl. This is called rim shell. They will take the shell and take the cuts right off of this rim, and when they glue it up, this is only a partial sheet, but you can see all the rim lines in it. And that gives a lot of flash. I don't know if I've got a full sheet right where I can grab it in a hurry here. Treasures is the woolly mammoth ivory, which is partially fossilized, which means it's not just stone, but still retains the qualities of ivory. That we buy it in a lot of different configurations. This had been out in the weather long enough to do like an onion, to come apart in layers. But a lot of times we get it where we can cut sheets that we can inlay from. Now these are pieces that are sliced out that I will then use for, and it's marvelous for if you're doing pictures of people, because you can mimic skin with it. You can also scrimshot or engrave in it and make some decent lines. And set some of this down. There's kind of a potato chip look, sideways cut, which would give me, I'd have to wet and flatten that, and I can. It's cupped a little bit. But if I wanted a piece with distinctive green lines in it. And we use it also for, this is the saddles, or the thing that fits in the bridge where the strings go over. So people like the nut and saddle made out of that. Fossil ivory blanks to make those out of. And just generally a collection of ivory pieces. The nice thing about this is no endangered species. The woolly mammoth has been extinct longer than man has been here, and unlike elephant ivory, where you have to deal with poachers, and you know, I think of some of the pictures that I've seen of elephants suffering with a tusk cut off because somebody thought they wanted that tusk, and I can use this ivory and feel good and have a good substitute and something that we can have fun with. Okay, I was talking about the young fellow that works for me, Keith Sloat Dowden. He came to me right out of high school, and I remember when he came to the door, he very, very shy young man, and he knocked on the door, and when I opened it, I said, "Can I help you?" And he said, "Well, my mother says you'd want me." And I said, "What would I want you for?" He said, "Well, I'm an artist." And I said, "Well, okay, I'll take a chance. Go in and sit down and do something." Well, he went in and sat at one of the benches and took a pencil, and he's sitting there glancing at me and almost sketching. And when he got done a few minutes later, there was a picture of me. So I was impressed enough to then give him a little instruction, and he's been with me now, 10 years anyway, and he is arguably the finest pearl cutter in the world. He can cut things that nobody else thinks of.
Very important.
And your name is
It's Keith Sloat Dowden.
Keith.
Yep.
And what got you involved in pearl inlay? Because I hear you're a real young master.
Yeah, well, I pretty much, I was looking for a job. That's kind of how I first came here. I didn't know anything about inlay. I didn't even know really that's what was done here. But my mom worked with Dave's ex-wife at the local ski mountain, and I was looking for a job, and she said I should stop by here. So I came by, and Dave pretty much sat me down with very little direction and said, "See what you can do," more or less. And that was 9 years ago now. So yes, I just sort of came into it like looking for a job, more or less.
And what do you enjoy about this?
I enjoy working on the instruments and seeing all the different kinds of instruments. I enjoy that a lot of the work we do is custom orders, where someone might give us an idea, and I get to create from just an idea the pattern, rather than we do the traditional patterns as well, and letters like this and whatnot. This is one I have never done before, so it's fun to do. And I enjoy the creative aspect of it, and the environment of the shop is a big part of.
I'm Lee Mulverhill. I've been with David for about 13 years. I retired, I came here and I built a guitar, and it turned out fairly well, and I never left. In the back room I have my 30th guitar that I numbered for myself, and I've probably worked with David on a couple of hundred guitars, so it's been an experience.
Okay, we're here in the back room of the shop, and we have a lot of different necks and all kinds of materials cut out here, Dave. Can you tell us about it?
Sure. Well, we build about 50 guitars a year, and we like to keep, ahead in a lot of the pieces. One of the advantages I have over pretty much anybody else is I've worked for the Martin Guitar Plant for so many years that I can buy some of the pre-shaped necks and things that aren't available to the general public. And I've got rows, shelved rows of necks that will be used. I can just pull one out and show you what we're talking about. This is a neck for a guitar, slots in it for the truss rod, and there's no head veneer on it yet, but the dovetail is cut, and there's an awful lot of these things.
For all different types, you have 12 strings, and you have the triple O's, and almost every style that you can imagine here.
There's a 12-string one.
Uh-huh.
And we have them for basses. We have them for whatever size anybody wants to build. This one is Babinga, which has some nice figure to it. And we've got, as I said, we've just got a whole lot of different things, and we use a lot of the woods from South America and that particular direction.
How are you dealing with the fact of these woods disappearing? I know that so many guitar makers are so concerned about, especially...
Actually, I'm dealing with it well by just dropping them.
About the sustainability of a lot of the exotic woods, and like the babinga is not as an endangered wood as rosewood, correct?
True. In the rosewood line, the Brazilian rosewood, which is what most people would like their guitar made out of, back in I forget just which year now, but somewhere in the 1970 era, we entered into a treaty that said we will not import or export any Brazilian rosewood that wasn't cut, the tree cut before 1970. And what this means is there's a severe limitation on available woods. I have salvaged wood from barns in Brazil. They, you know, their beams in the barns are Brazilian rosewood, which is nice to find. I've got logs from a log dam. The Brazilian logs are bigger than diameter than you might expect. Back in the 60s when Martin had their own sawmill, I somewhere have in my archives have pictures of me standing by a Brazilian log, and its diameter is well over my head. And the dam that we bought had logs that were so big, rotted in a foot. We didn't care because we still had enough, enough wood to be able to salvage something good. They also do what they call stump salvage. A lot of the trees, if a tree breaks off somewhere, we can use that bottom portion of it. And it's, it's a challenge to get the woods.
How does the Adirondack wood play a part in? You're in more or less in the Adirondack country, right?
We're right on the edge of it. Adirondack spruce is what the bluegrass fanatics would prefer because that's what Martin used back in the late 30s because of the war. They couldn't get German spruce, and so they used Adirondack. And the sound of a 30s Martin is the holy grail of guitar building. Right now, my own personal theories, I still do get some Adirondack, but I can get a better grade of spruce in Sitka or somewhat of Alaska and other places that haven't been logged or still has some old growth timber. You were playing a guitar with an Adirondack top, which sounds fairly decent.
Oh, yes.
But I use some of it. It's a renewable resource for us, and we use what we can get that's very good. I'm interested in quality of wood foremost.
Now, what do they use this term bear claw? What does that exactly mean when they say bear claw?
Well, if you look at a board, you'll see the green lines running up and down in it. And bear claw it looks like a bear had clawed his way up the board. That's why they call it. But it's similar to looking at a piece of curly maple and saying, what causes the curly maple? That's a very good question. I don't have the answer, and I don't think anybody else does either. What causes the bear claws? It may be a disease in the tree, a fungus of some kind. It may be the way the weather and the wind have shocked the tree while it's growing. I don't know. But in these piles of spruce that I have here, this is figured Sitka from Alaska, and it has a bear claw pattern that we'll see on one of the guitars, it is
Extremely
book matched even. It's so intense that it's there. This particular guitar is our player series. We jokingly refer to them as beaters because they're made to be taken and played on stage, and even though they're a special handmade guitar, they're made to be a player, not to be put in a glass case somewhere. The name of this guitar is Bubba because it's made from babinga, and this particular babinga is called waterfall babinga. It's the fanciest of the babinga woods that you can get, and it, as you can see if I turn it, it changes with the light and has some pretty interesting green to it. There's a little bit of light wood, which we would call sapwood, which I purposely left in to give because I thought it gave it some character. And the top on this one is a bear claw Alaskan Sitka spruce, and it's a traditional old Martin fingerboard, the D45 Snowflakes fingerboard, and on the head of this one is one of the Martin had 3 traditional torch or flower pot patterns, and this is one of the old standards. I've been with Martin so long that the things that I build are reminiscent somewhere of the Martin guitars. It's kind of my paying homage to the heritage that they have helped me acquire. So, one of our player series, and one that I'm proud of. Well, this guitar represents to me 50 years of guitar building. In 2009, which was my 50th year of having built my first guitar, I decided to take all of the people in the shop that work here, and each of us put our own special touch on something, and turn it into a anniversary guitar that would represent the best of what I could do and what the people that I'd taught could help me along the way. And we had an awful lot of fun building this because if for people that have built guitars, guitar building is predominantly a lot of sanding interspersed with minor disasters. And this guitar was no exception. We started out with the best of the woods that we could get, and it seemed to fight us a little along the way because every time we'd go to do something, something else would crop up that fought me, and by the time it was done, it was one of those things where we appreciated it more than we would have if it had gone easily. When we bent the sides, we had them in a mold, and the clips holding the mold together came apart and dropped the sides on the floor and splintered this side. There are probably 9 pieces in that side that I put back together. And the wood was so special. The back of the guitar represents some of the artwork of the group of us in the shop. Me as I looked when I was in high school from my high school yearbook picture, and there I am a couple of years ago in 2009. And the wood itself, this wood came from a log dam in Brazil, and in the sunlight shows a lot of dark greens and different colors in the wood. It represents the best of everything that we can put together and have fun doing. It's inlaid on the back of the peg head, and it's inlaid at the end wedge. The bridge pins and the end pin are woolly mammoth ivory. This particular ivory came from Siberia. We get it both Siberia and Alaska. The woolly mammoths come up through the permafrost as it melts, and the people that live there know that I'll pay good money for it, so I get it. The jewels here are real sapphires that I buy from a jewelry supplier, and the bridge is bordered in pearl, a touch that you don't often see on guitars. The inside of the guitar, I don't know if you can see it through the sound hole, but it says 1959-2009, David Nichols, 50 years. And where normally Martin would put a serial number, up inside it has the Nichols, and D for Dreadnought, and 2 for February of '09. And the inside the guitar, the braces are lined with pearl bordering, and everything on the guitar is just kind of special.
One other thing I'd like for you to talk about, Dave, is what does teaching mean to you? You have a lot of students here that you let experiment and kind of find their way in this world of customized guitars.
Well, the biggest thing to me is I'm a cancer survivor twice, and I realize the finality of life. I want the things that I know to carry on, and I would like people that are starting now to have an advantage I never had. So we run, every week we run either a guitar building or an inlay course, and we've had hundreds of people through the shop. We have a website you can see this on, Custom Pearl Inlay, just all one word.com. And there are hundreds of people you can see that have come, built guitars, learned to inlay, some just hobbyists, but a whole lot of them have gone on to make a mark in the world. And every time they do, I'm proud, because it's an extension of me. I have no secrets in the guitar building or the inlay business, and I keep it that way on purpose. A lot of artists you'll find are very inward about what they're doing or how they're doing it. And my thing is to show as many people as much as I can in as logical a way as I can, so that they can benefit and carry it on. If I should send a rose to you for every time you made me blue, you'd have a room full of roses. If I should send a rose of white for every time I've cried all night, you'd have a room full of roses. And if I took the petals and tore them all apart, I'd be tears